Hello and welcome to the Computer Vault podcast, where we discuss the history of computers, computing and IT. I'm Aidan, and today's episode is continuing the mini-series on the first versions of Microsoft Windows, with this episode talking about the first GUI operating system, Windows 1.0. If you're listening on Mixcloud, I'll be playing some music too, and episodes without music are available on all the mainstream podcast streaming platforms. Microsoft Windows 1.0 was the first major release of the Microsoft Windows operating system, marking the beginning of a new era in personal computing. Looking at its history, the development of Windows began after Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates saw a demonstration of Vision, a graphical user interface software suite at Comdex in 1982. Inspired by this, Microsoft started working on its own GUI. Windows 1.0 was officially announced to the public in November 1983, but it took 2 more years of development before it was ready for release. Windows 1.0 was released on November the 20th, 1985, and it was initially priced at $99. The initial release was followed by several updates, with the final version being 1.04, released in April 1987. Windows 1.0 was not a standalone operating system, but rather a graphical environment that ran on top of MS-DOS. It introduced a simple file manager called MS-DOS Executive. Unlike later versions, Windows 1.0 used tiled windows that could not overlap. It included several built-in programs such as Calculator, Paint, Notepad, and a game called Reversi. Windows 1.0 supported the use of a mouse, which was a relatively new input device at the time. The initial reception of Windows 1.0 was mixed. Whilst it was praised for its innovative approach, it faced criticism for its performance issues and limited software compatibility. Despite its shortcomings, Windows 1.0 laid the foundation for future versions of Windows, which would go on to become the most popular desktop operating system in the world. Windows 1.0 marked the beginning of Microsoft's journey into graphical user interfaces, setting the stage for the evolution of personal computing. The development of Microsoft Windows 1.0 faced several significant challenges. At the time, personal computers had limited memory and processing power, which made it difficult to create a responsive and efficient graphical user interface. Ensuring that Windows 1.0 could run on a wide range of existing hardware and work with various MS-DOS applications was a complete task. During its development, several other graphical environments like Vision and Gem were also being developed. These competitors put pressure on Microsoft to deliver a superior product. Originally announced in 1983, Windows 1.0 faced numerous delays and was not released until November 1985. These delays were partly due to the technical challenges and the need to refine the product. Convincing users to adopt a new graphical interface when they were accustomed to command-line interfaces was a significant change. The concept of using a mouse and graphical interface was still novel to many users. Aligning the development team with a clear vision and ensuring effective coordination among various departments within Microsoft was crucial for the project's success. Despite these challenges, the release of Windows 1.0 marked a pivotal moment in the history of personal computing, laying the groundwork for future versions of Windows. Microsoft Windows 1.0 introduced several innovative features that were quite advanced for its time. Unlike later versions, Windows 1.0 used tiled windows that could not overlap. This was a novel approach at the time to managing multiple applications on the screen. The inclusion of mouse support was a significant innovation, as it allowed users to interact with the system in a more intuitive way compared to the command-line interfaces prevalent at the time. Windows 1.0 allowed users to run multiple applications simultaneously, which was a major step forward in productivity. Windows 1.0 came with several built-in applications such as Calculator, Paint, Notepad, and the game called Reversi. These applications showcased the potential of a graphical user environment. The MS-DOS Executive was a simple file manager that allowed users to navigate and manage files using a graphical interface. and Windows 1.0 was designed to run on a wide range of hardware, making it accessible to a broader audience. These features, while basic by today's standards, were groundbreaking at the time and laid the foundation for the evolution of graphical operating systems. Let's compare Microsoft Windows 1.0 with some other operating systems from the mid-1980s. So Windows 1.0 was released in 1985. It introduced a graphical user interface with tiled windows that couldn't overlap. It allowed running multiple applications simultaneously. It included basic programs like Calculator, Paint, Notepad and Reversi, and supported mouse input, which was innovative at the time. So Apple Macintosh System Software, also known as System 1, that was released in 1984. Featured overlapping windows, icons and a menu bar, which provided a more intuitive user experience. Initially did not support multitasking, but later versions introduced cooperative multitasking. Included applications like Finder, Mac Paint and Mac Write, and had a strong emphasis on mouse-driven interface from the start. Vision, which was released in 1983, had one of the first graphical user interfaces for IBM PCs, featuring overlapping windows. It supported multitasking, allowing users to run multiple applications simultaneously, included basic Office applications like a word processor and spreadsheets, and supported mouse input, which was relatively new at the time. And GEM, Graphical Environment Manager, that was released in 1985. Featured overlapping windows and icons similar to the Macintosh interface, supported multitasking, allowing users to switch between applications, and included basic applications like a desktop publisher and a Paint program, and again emphasised mouse-driven interfaces. Amiga OS was released in 1985. It featured a sophisticated graphical user interface with overlapping windows and icons. It supported preemptive multitasking, which was more advanced than the cooperative multitasking of other systems. Included applications like a text editor, Paint program and file manager, and had a strong emphasis on a mouse-driven interface too. So to summarise the comparisons, Windows 1.0 tiled windows were less advanced compared to the overlapping windows of Macintosh, Vision, GEM and Amiga OS. Windows 1.0 supported multitasking, but Amiga OS's preemptive multitasking was more advanced. And all these systems included basic applications, but the specific offerings varied between them all. And all these systems supported mouse input, but the level of integration and emphasis varied. Each of these operating systems had its strengths and weaknesses, but they all contributed to the evolution of graphical user interfaces and personal computing. Microsoft Windows 1.0 had a profound influence on the design and development of future operating systems. Here are some of the key ways it shaped the evolution of operating system designs. Windows 1.0 introduced a graphical user interface to a broader audience, moving away from text-based command line interfaces. This shift made computers more accessible and user-friendly. The GUI elements like windows, icons, menus and pointers, also known as WIMP, became standard components in future operating systems. Windows 1.0 allowed users to run multiple applications simultaneously, laying the groundwork for more advanced multitasking features in later versions. This capability improved productivity and set expectations for future operating systems to handle multiple tasks efficiently. The support for mouse input in Windows 1.0 was innovative at the time and influenced the design of future operating systems to incorporate mouse-driven interfaces. And this change significantly enhanced how users interacted with their computers, making it more intuitive and efficient. Windows 1.0 included basic applications like Calculator, Paint and Notepad, demonstrating the potential of bundled software. And this concept evolved into more sophisticated productivity suites in later versions such as Microsoft Office. The introduction of Windows 1.0 pushed other companies to develop their own graphical interfaces, leading to innovations in operating systems like Apple's Macintosh and IBM's OS/2. This competition drove rapid advancements in GUI design and functionality across the industry. Windows 1.0 laid the foundation for subsequent versions of Windows, each building on the innovations and lessons learned from its predecessor. Features like overlapping windows, improved graphics, and enhanced multitasking in later versions, e.g. Windows 2.0 and 3.0, can trace their origins back to the concepts introduced in Windows 1.0. Overall, Windows 1.0 was a pioneering product whose innovations in GUI design, multitasking, and user interaction have had a profound and lasting impact on the development of modern operating systems, shaping the way we use computers today. So that brings us to the end of the episode talking about the history of Microsoft Windows 1.0. I've mentioned dates from 1982, 83, 84, 85 and 1987, so if you're listening on Mixcloud, that's where the music selection has come from for this episode. Thanks for listening to the Computer Vault podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review on whichever platform you're listening on, and be sure to come back for our next episode, which will continue our mini-series on the Windows operating systems. You can also check out my website at www.computervault.co.uk. Until then, leaving you with a quote from Steve Wozniak: "Never trust a computer you can't throw out of a window."